Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. It's such a pleasure to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Looks very nice and sunny wherever you are. Is that France? Are you in France?
No, actually, I'm in LA today.
Oh, you're in LA.
Mhm.
That's why it looks gloriously sunny. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. Perhaps you could just kick off with a brief introduction to your film, Charlatan. What can people expect if they're going to watch your film?
What I expected?
What can people expect if they're going to watch
Um,
Charlatan?
they, oh gosh, difficult question. I think that I think that the people can expect that the film will be surprising, that the main character is complex and ambiguous, but we have to try to understand his journey, that the people are not only bad or only good, that the reality and the relation to the nature are something which can be very powerful but also destroying, that the ambitions and ego can be something which also destroys who you are, and your love. You know, it's many things you can expect because the film has many layers.
Mm.
And when doing it, we hoped that that till the very end, the viewer will be not knowing where we are taking him. That it's the film which doesn't manipulate, which is open, which asks the questions and not gives the answers.
Mm. And it's loosely a biopic of this faith healer. How did you come across his story, and what inspired you to make a film about him and put it on the screen?
It is a biopic of some kind, but in the same time, it was written and thought as in the similar way where we are constructing fictional films. And it's also because the knowledge of the character is limited, and we know about his official actions, or about things which happened to him, like the accusations and trial by the communist power in the Czechoslovakia, but we know the less or more how many people he treated. We know less or more what kind of the clients or patients he had, including very famous and very political people like the Nazi officials or Stalinian officials. But we don't know his soul. We don't know his private life, really. We don't know what he was thinking, really, what he was, it means it's a lot of spaces which are mystery in the life of this man. And we try to like fulfill this mystery with our imagination. So it's like the mix of the, of the true story and the imagined or investigated fiction. And that was fascinating because I don't like regular biopics when you have the official story of somebody. And anyway, I think when we are speaking about the real man, famous real man or less famous real man, you see only some surface of him. You
Mm.
never know, the deepest mystery of his soul, right? So yeah, it is this kind of the movie. It's not like classical biopic.
Mm. What might be some of the pros and cons of dealing with a real person? Because it's great that you have something to, some facts and some information to base a story around, but then you are obviously having to fictionalize in between. So do you sometimes feel confined by that, or feel any responsibility to try and guess exactly how it might have been? Or do you not find it, you find that you're more liberated than that, and able to create the character, if you like, that you imagine he would be behind the facts?
Well, it's probably different responsibility you feel when you are speaking about living person,
Mm.
or about somebody who lived not long time ago and has a family and close people who are still concerned about his or her image. That is much more complicated, and also you have to be more careful. But Mikolaszek was forgotten, somehow. so yeah, I felt some responsibility toward his memory. And the subject was brought to us by his grand nephew,
Mm.
who wanted to make the documentary of him. So most of informations, like the secret informations we had, it was from him, from this young man who was initiating the, you know, the story. And he was somehow our alibi, you know. He was the some hair of Mikolaszek, you know, blood in the bloodline. So the fact that he accepted our vision was like was good for us. But and then maybe in reality Mikolaszek was different, you know. That I don't know. It was our intuition, and sometimes you know the writer's intuition or filmmaker intuition, actor's intuition is more powerful than you know the documentary facts you can gather. So we just believed from some point that we are telling the truth.
Yeah.
And if it's not the, you know, 100% truth about Jan Mikolaszek, this man born and dead, it is the truth about some secrets of you know of man's psychology and the man's behavior and the man's soul, exact, and choices.
Mm. And obviously, it's based around his profession, if you like, as this faith healer. And I would say, on balance, the film suggests that he was able to do the things he believed he could, which was, you know, by looking only at patients' urine, being able to kind of diagnose and treat various ailments. So, was it your belief from reading about him and understanding him that he was able to do these things?
Yeah, I think that to me it's pretty clear that he had this incredibly developed skills and intuition in diagnosing and healing. He was unable to heal everything, you know, and he didn't pretend that he's able to heal or to help in several stages of several sicknesses, like I don't know, cancer or so. So he was not the charlatan of the kind who is pretending that he has some mysterious power, you know, to heal the things that regular doctors can't. But he was, I think, more focused than the average doctor is, and his intuition was extremely sharp. And also the knowledge of the plants and the, you know, and the invention in combination, very innovative combination of plants which are used till now, you know, by some herbalists, uh, was exceptional. So he was some kind of the genius. And it's so many, you know, proofs that he really helped those people with the names and, you know, datas, that we can no doubt about it. And he also passed several exams and tests made by the medical corps, with Gestapo, and but also before the Second World War in Czechoslovakia. So I think he was the healer with the special skills. Yes.
Mm. And this isn't your first, you know, period set film. So what is it that draws you to making films set in different eras? What might be some of the specific challenges of doing that, you know, from the costume and the locations and everything like that, bringing it to life sort of in a historically accurate way?
Well, you know, I have the great collaborators also, and for me, it's important, of course, that it will be less or more exact. But in the same time, I'm watching those period films like the timeless films. It means for me, the past is not really the past, and they are interesting for me when they have real emotional, intellectual, or political relevancy with the contemporary life and contemporary world. So the I try to make them as lively and as personal as I am doing in a contemporary film. Maybe and the styles are different. You know, the style of Mr. Jones is different from Charlatan style, because every story for me like asks for its own language, and my goal is to look for this language together with my collaborators, with my cinematographer and production designer and costume designer, and so and we evoke the word. We are giving to the audience the experience of what we believe is still alive.
Mm. And you do seem to focus, a little bit on like this period, but also in Eastern Europe, so Mr. Jones in Ukraine, this one in the former Czechoslovakia. Do you think it's also important to shine a bit of a light on the stories? Okay, we've all heard about, the Soviet Union, we've heard about Nazi Germany, but perhaps sometimes these other stories from other countries, in that period don't always get as much notice. So is that another aspect that's important to you?
I think it's my own experience because I am from Central Europe and from Poland, and I studied in Czechoslovakia, and the experience of my family, my father's family who was killed in Holocaust, and so I believe that the experience of the citizen of Central Europe in 20th century, especially in the first part of 20th century, is so important, tragic, and somehow shaping, the future of the humanity. That yes, I'm coming back to those questions and periods, and unfortunately, today more and more I'm finding the relevancy. It means Mr. Jones, for example, sounds extremely relevant on political level. And so it's why I think I'm doing it. And another film which impressed me very much this year, it was Jasmila Žbanic, Quo Vadis Aida, who is speaking not about the long time ago. It's speaking about the events you remember, but in the same time they've been quickly forgotten and washed out from the conscience of the Western world, and I think it's extremely important to show how dangerous it is to wash it out.
And talking about that, what do you think these stories have to say to a contemporary audience, and what do you think are some of the parallels? I guess if we're thinking about the rise of populism and the breakup of the European Union, which is obviously one of the biggest peace projects that we've seen. What do you think, looking back at these stories, can say to an audience today?
Well, that the past is not the past, that we have to remember, not remember even. It's like a warning a bit, but also it's sometimes it's a waking up call. It's this kind of the. I feel myself sometimes to be some kind of the signalist, and I'm just choosing different form to do it than just the journalistic form. But also, the main message I have when I'm making the movies is that the world is very complicated and humans are very complicated. And what makes me angry today, it is simplification of everything, which social medias are supporting very much, and this judgments all the time, and that everything is Manichaean and black or white, that it's like that or like that, and somehow choosing such a complex and complicated character like Charlatan, like Mikolasek, it was for me some personal statement, to the audience, don't believe that the things are simple.
And yeah, I think that's something you bring up very well throughout the film, is that we're never quite sure, especially because of the structure where we're constantly getting flashbacks. So we're seeing different snippets of the kind of person he was and his past. And there's certainly a lot of contradictory stuff in there. So was that something that was very purposeful to kind of keep us unmoored? And even the relationship between him and his assistant sometimes feels very loving and romantic, and other times feels very aggressive and coercive and quite terrifying in some respects. So was that something that was very purposeful?
Well, it's what's going on in the humans relationship, but especially it's so it's so ambiguous if you cannot live your relationship and your emotions and your love for others in the open world, in the open light. So it makes it twisted and dangerous somehow, because it's toxic not to be able to admit what is your real nature and what you who you really love.
Mm. And I think, the fact that this film also touches on his homosexuality and the fact that he wasn't able to, live openly with the person he wanted to, does that also have something to say to today? Because there's lots of countries where that's still an issue. And do you think there's also a kind of trend at the moment of uncovering these stories? Perhaps when we've seen historical films in the past, we haven't seen characters with different sexual orientations. That's kind of been washed out of the history, whereas now more and more we're seeing stories where that is actually touched upon as well.
Yeah, in Poland, where I am from, you have populist government and nationalistic government also, and one of their methods to divide the society is to initiate the hate against LGBT people, accusing them on destroying the family, and so the language we know from 30s, and not only from there, but which was practically disappearing from the Western civilization, so it can come back any moment. I feel it very strongly that Second World War was some kind of and the Holocaust, it was some kind of the vaccination against this kind of the ideology, but this vaccine evaporated. Mm-hmm. And we are now living in the world where anything is possible, also to start the hate against some scapegoats, and to start even the massacre.
Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking about how amazing your central cast are in particular. So, how did you decide upon these particular two actors? And I thought it was really funny when I was watching the film, how similar the younger version was of the main character. And then I realized it was actually his son. So that makes sense that they look that similar. So, how did you go about your casting process?
Real luck we had that Joseph, his second son, because Ivan has 4 sons, that he wants to be an actor. It means he's already an actor, very young one, and that he's so much like his father.
Yeah, it's crazy. So how did you set upon deciding on your cast and working particularly with the two main characters?
Ivan, we've been thinking from the beginning. I did some casting sessions with other actors, to be sure. But it was pretty clear to me that he's the one. And I worked with him before on the miniseries in Burning Bush. We did for Czech HBO, for European HBO. And so he was in, and after it was looking for his young version, which, as I said, we've been lucky, especially they waited on me to make this film for 4 years because I had another engagement. And during this 4 years, this boy grown up, because he was 14 when we started to speak about the film, and he was 18 when we've been ready to start. So that was a big luck. And after I did extended casting with Ivan, with the main character to be involved, for Franciszek, for the assistant, because it was important to me that it's some kind of the real bond between them, that they feel trust, that Ivan especially, who never played this kind of the role, that he feels, that he's secure, that it's easier for him, and that they are different, but in the same time bond together.
And I was thinking, you're a real veteran of the cinema industry. How has this last year been for you? And how does it feel to be putting a film out now? Obviously, hoping that there's, light at the end of the tunnel, vaccination program and the rest. But obviously, for the most part, movie theaters have been closed, and a lot of films not been able to be put out. So how's the last year been for you, and how does it feel to put a film out right now?
Well, it was very strange year for me and for many people, for some people, for many people, it was a very tragic year. So I was luckier probably because I spent most of my year in my country house in Bretagne in France. And that was my dream for a long time to be there longer than few weeks or 1 month. And suddenly I was free to do so. And also the lockdown wasn't so terrible when you are, in the nature. So and two of my films which been on release in this time have been relatively very lucky because Mr. Jones, when lockdown started, I was promoting Mr. Jones in Paris, in France, for French release, which supposed to happen 3 days after actually cinemas had been locked. And the promotion went very well, so I was very hopeful for this film on French market. But it was, stopped. And the distributors decided to open it immediately after in the summer break when the cinema had been open. And it was my most successful movie in France ever. So it was the big surprise that this, really difficult and tragic film found such a great audience and the critical response. And also in the US, it was released in the streaming, but it had very good reactions. And Charlatan opened in Czech Republic also in this between two COVID waves and did great. So those two movies, at least on some territories, have been very lucky, which gave me, of course, the satisfaction and pleasure. But the future of the cinema is so uncertain now. And I became, in the meantime, the president of European Film Academy and feel some duty to come with the ideas how to keep the theatrical cinema alive. And of course, I don't have the miraculous recipes. So we will be watching the situation closely and come with some probably solutions.
And in some respects, film is something that people can consume and actually has been a bit of a lifeline for a lot of people in the same way music has, because it's something you can enjoy from home, be transported to another time and place. But what do you think might be lost from people stopping actually having the experience of being in the cinema and watching it with a fellow audience?
I think it's a different kind of the experience. It really is, to see the film, not with every film, with the films which are driven mostly by the plot, like the most of TV series are. Even the best TV series have this, thing. You can watch it even on your cell phone, and you are losing something, but not the essential. But the films which has some sensual cinematic power, it means what make the cinema to let you dream. You can really experience it fully only in the theater in the big dark room, surrounded by other people who are sharing this experience and creating some kind of the common emotions, and on the big screen, really big screen. So it will be really the lost if we will be not having it anymore. It will banalize the cinema and makes it some kind of the television. Yes.
I was going to mention, actually, because you've had great success working in TV series as well as in film, like The Wire and House of Cards. So what do you think is different about directing TV rather than film? And do you have plans to continue doing that in parallel to your filmmaking?
But I like TV, and it means technically it's not so different. You are here, you have the crew, you have the camera, you have the lights, you have the actors, you have the story. So it's very much the same craft. And sometimes I like the speed of that and some kind of the fever. And also when if it's reoccurring series, then when I'm coming back after some time, like I did for The Wire or Treme or House of Cards, it's like it's like coming back to the family reunion. It's nice. And some series have been very important to me, and I think to the to the global audience. And some series are very attractive, entertainment. So I absolutely respect it and like it. Making it, I think I don't plan to do as many as I did. I think I will be very picky about what when deciding to do the series and something I can really somehow influence.
Mm.
Um, but what makes me a bit, tired of the series is that they easily become quite conventional. It means you can and predictable in terms of the dramaturgy storytelling, because every episode has the same kind of the goal to let you come back towards the next one, and you have to make it conventional. It's just conventional. It's wonderful convention. It can be very efficient. It can be quite innovative, but it's somehow the same convention all the time around. So after a while, as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, it's not so exciting to me to do it again.
Mm. And then in terms of films, do you already know what you'll be working on next, or perhaps you've already started?
I'm developing some things, but it's on very preliminary, preliminary stage. So we'll
We'll wait
see.
and see. And I was going to ask you as well. Obviously, we've just had the Oscars, and some great wins in there, and particularly for women in terms of Chloe Zhao winning Best Director and also her film getting Best Picture, but also in terms of diversity.
I was very happy for that. First, that is a great film, and I really like. It means I really like a lot No Man's Land. It was a great inspiration for me, and I'm happy also, for the women like she and promising young woman screenwriter and director, and for Frances McDormand. I think it was important year for women, and I only regret that Jasmila Żbanisz didn't win the international film with Aida. But and I'm also happy for the script and the best actor for The Father, which I found another very important film of this year, and I think Anthony Hopkins did something beautiful and very deeply true and courageous. So yeah, they've been for me they've been great Oscars, and I like the ceremony without all this things, but probably the audience was disappointed that we can pay maybe we can pay for that, we can pay for the fact that the Oscars are not anymore very important promotional tool.
And does like recognition at that level signal to you that we are seeing a shift in the cinema industry, perhaps being more open to different people both in front and behind the camera, and it's not so dominated by the classic white male director, let's say?
Yeah, it means I think that diversity is the must. It means the world is very diverse, and women are 50% of the humanity. The colored people are even more than that, and and we have the people of different different identities, and they've been very much voiceless till now, and now they are claiming, and not only them but also the industry is claiming to give them the voice, and I think it's absolutely just, and that it will be for the best of the cinema, because it will reflect what the world really is.
Mm-hmm. And what about in terms of film festivals, which obviously you've been a great part of over the years? Do you hope that they'll return to being the in-person, like Venice, Cannes, and Berlin, or you think actually in the future they'll increasingly be online and perhaps they can have a wider audience that way?
Oh yes, but the festivals online, really, it's like watching pornographic movies a bit. It means not the same. the festival is about festivity, it's the root of the word. And that this excitement that we are here in this very place to watch the film for the first time, and share the opinions, and after and after dance and drink. Um, well, I hope it will come back. It will be really sad if we will be doing it only at home, watching the movies on the on our laptop or eventually like TV set, and drink lonely, to the screen. I hope it will be back, and we have some chance. I think that that probably at least for some amount of time, the virus will go away a bit and allow us, and we'll learn how to live with the virus eventually. And it will come back. Yeah, it was, Venice was like mixed last year. So it was already something. We'll see what will happen to Cannes, and I'm curious. We'll see. What pandemic really taught us is that we know anything about the future. So any kind of the predictions are potential.
And I was also going to ask you a little bit about, outside of filmmaking, you're also, quite involved in activism. I mean, most recently, I think with like the protests about abortion rights in Poland. So, how do you see that side of yourself kind of, and how does it sit with your filmmaking? How do they perhaps overlap as well sometimes?
I'm a filmmaker, I'm a citizen. I'm citizen of Poland, of France, of the world, and resident of the US. So all those, what's going on in the world and on those countries is important to me. And I know that you cannot escape politics in the times when when the world is so divided and led by the populists and autocrats. So I feel I have to be involved somehow. In the movies, not always, not necessarily, not directly. It means I think we need the future films which are political, and it's not enough of them. And if they are too like obvious mostly. But we have a lot of documentaries which are really powerful from this side. And I hope that the future directors finally will be more courageous and will leave their comfort zone, at least some of them, and try to like grab what is important in the world today.
And just to kind of finish off on that note, then, what advice might you have for emerging filmmakers or scriptwriters, particularly women who want to break into the industry? From your experience, what advice would you give them?
Courage, courage, courage. And I think women are more courageous now, because they understood that they had the centuries of silence, so they have to break up. And I hope it will show up.
All right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thanks so much for sharing all that with us, and for this fantastic film, The Charlatan. And best of luck with it, with the release here in the UK. It was lovely to speak to you. Thanks so much. Go and enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you. Take care. All my best.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye. Bye.